Well, I'm gonna be honest with you. I didn't think Brooke's flashback would end quite this quickly, although I did think it was going to be a shorter one since technically we do already have most of his backstory with Laboon and his reason for joining the Straw Hat crew because he wants to circumnavigate the world to get back to Laboon the proper way. Brooke's dream is still related to his promise. However, we do get a little more detail on Brooke's mannerisms. More importantly, the reason he is the way he is, and, more shockingly, what exactly happened in the Kingdom of Asperia. Which, I'll say we probably have maybe one or two more chapters before we get back to the action on Elbaf. That being said, hello Internet, I am the hero of Julios, once again with another One Piece chapter summary. This week's chapter is chapter 1185, Mind Your Own Beeswax. Our artwork this week is Boa Hancock practicing her cooking skills for Luffy. Actually, I really like this one. I think it's very cute. I'm not a big Luffy Boa shipper. I know a lot of people are, but I do appreciate the level of effort she puts into, I guess, taking an interest in Luffy's interests. I mean, they're both already pirates. She kind of already has that one nailed, but now she's taking up cooking because, you know, if you're going to try and woo Luffy, they say the quickest way to a man's heart is through his stomach. I think for Luffy that is probably the only way to Luffy's heart and his arteries. But enough about that. Let's get into the actual chapter itself, which starts with Brook becoming Candle's squire. So young Brook is going to learn from her how to be a proper knight or proper guardian of the kingdom. And she learns very quickly that she has a lot of work to do. As they're walking to the castle, just started, this is day one squire, and Brook is immediately like, wow, there's a lot of pretty ladies here. That lady's pretty, not you, that lady's pretty, and she's like, wow, I'm gonna have to teach you some manners. And Brook's like, hey, yo, show me your underwear. Beats the crap out of it. You know what? Never mind. I'm gonna have to beat manners into you. Listen, Brook, you gotta start acting more gentlemanly. And he's like, oh, don't you worry, Candle, Lady Candle, you are my squire, Brook. You have to learn how to. And he's already off. Like, hey, excuse me. Hey, yo, can I see your underwear? And she just gets him again. And Brook. So, as a result of all of her effort, we do see in a few panels later, she does manage to knock a little bit of manners into Brook. See, Brook doesn't just casually walk up to women and say, yo, let me take a look at them draws. No. Brook is a proper gentleman. He says, excuse me, madam, may I see your panties? And okay, so there were some bets. I should have put this on the bingo card. That's what I should have done. But there were some bets throughout the circles of One Piece that with Brook getting a second flashback, that we were going to have some emotional reason as to why the may I see your panties joke is a constant thing with Brook. Turns out there's an emotional connection there. Not as crazy emotional as, it could have been. I mean, this is One Piece after all. But yes, the reason Brook talks the way he does is because he was actually trained to be a proper gentleman. Didn't stop him from asking such questions, but at least he's a proper gentleman about it. Brook continues telling his story to Shuri in the present day of the flashback by telling her that over the years he learned how to work under her, and eventually a ship washed on the shores of Asperia that was never, it was an authority that was never quite introduced to them before. As Shuri correctly guesses, it was a celestial dragon. And according to Brook, the stress of that situation left Lady Candle bedridden for months. So I'm guessing just social faux pas, probably some shenanigans from Brook himself, maybe even the fact that she's very beautiful and the Celestial Dragon probably, made some suggestions and whatnot. Regardless, anytime those guys are involved, it is a stressful day for pretty much everyone else. That being said, Brooke does tell Shuri when Lady Candle was bedridden, it was like the sun set on the kingdom. The most beautiful shining light possible was gone. But just like when the sun sets, eventually the sun rises, and the king emerged victorious and happy with his lovely, beautiful wife. Now, at first, when last chapter or so, when we heard, Candle marries the king, it was one of those like, oh, is it a political marriage? Is it just because she was in a seat of authority? No, actually. While Candle's training Brooke, Brooke asks her, do you have a boyfriend? Because obviously little Brooke has a crush on her, so he's kind of hoping maybe someday. And she tells him, no, I don't have any, I don't have a husband, I don't have a boyfriend, I have someone special to me, but that's as far as it's ever gonna go. And Brooke's like, oh, that's weird. Why wouldn't you just, go for it, And she's like, it's okay, Brooke. I'm just happy to be by his side. To which, of course, little Brooke is just like, oh, me. That makes sense. Okay, I love you too, Miss Candle. And she's like, no, it's not you, Brooke, but that's very sweet. So this feeling was mutual between the prince and Lady Candle. So that's very nice. Reuven and Candle do get married, and eventually little baby Shuri is born. And she is, according to Brooke, the most adorable baby princess that was ever born ever. And the whole kingdom rejoiced, and it was like 2 suns rose instead of 1. It was just a wonderful time. And of course, Shuri's like, well, Brooke, it seems like you really do love mom and dad. And he's like, I very much do. Everybody loves the king and queen. And she goes, yeah, and you would do anything for them, right? And he's like, of course I would. And she's like, and you would do anything for me, right? And he goes, of course I would. And she goes, but you'd only do anything for me because I'm mom and dad's daughter, right? And Brooke's like, well, no, it's because you're you. And she's like, why did you hesitate, Brooke? You're not supposed to hesitate. So she pouts, and Brooke gives her candy because she's still a child. And we get this montage of Brooke, being at Lady Shuri's side as, I won't say he's raising her, because it's obvious, she's a princess. She's got knights and servants and mom and dad and teachers and tutors and Brooke himself, of course. And so it's a group effort to raise the princess, but the montage is of Brooke and Shuri together as Brooke is teaching her a song about being independent. And if mom and dad ever overstep their boundaries, you just use this phrase from a kingdom in the West that I heard of. I believe it was Kamigata, but I will double check on that. Let me just check my notes here. So yes, the kingdom is called Kamigata, and the phrase that Brooke teaches her is, mind your own beeswax, which is obviously, just a very silly term, but it means step off, back off, get away. I am my own person, and I will not be controlled. And it becomes a very important phrase later in this chapter, but we'll get to that in a moment. Unfortunately, as with all One Piece flashbacks, something tragic happens. That tragedy this time being a mist that rolls into the kingdom and begins to deteriorate all the instruments, and eventually the vocal cords, and eventually the health of the people. And even though Lady Candle promises that this mist will pass, and true to her word, the mist did eventually pass, Lady Candle also passed. I mean, I hate to say it, but she was a mom in a One Piece flashback. What do you think was going to happen? I mean, we also know what happens to the king because of Brooke's statement to Shuri, but yeah, so it's a tragic day. I mean, tears are shed across the kingdom. Remember, her just being sick in bed was like the sun setting. This is a flat-out eclipse. But after a time passes, the kingdom is kind of rocky. It's a little difficult, but there's still the beautiful Princess Shuri, and there's still the noble knight Brooke, and the king is a well-loved king. This is a good kingdom. Unfortunately, something's been on the king's mind lately. Something that eventually he goes front and tells the people, we're going to war. with the world government. They only have 2 months to prepare, but Brooke manages to rally them. They hide Princess Shuri because if she gets captured, the kingdom's doomed because, they'll have their arms tied behind their backs at that point. And they fight. They fight like musicians. They fight with a battling rally cry, a wartime song, Mind Your Own Beeswax. Because this kingdom, based on the lyrics Brooke is giving, which I can't tell if they're improvised or just a song he wrote, but this kingdom is on the outer edges. It is so far away from Marie-Joie that it would be just a completely foolish endeavor for the Celestial Dragons to even go there. There's nothing there worth going for. Except apparently Princess Shuri. Brooke fights his way through hundreds of Navy soldiers, probably some Celestial Dragon God Knights in training or something, whatever. He gets to the throne room, and what he witnesses is shocking, terrifying to him, confusing to a lot of us, because we all kind of assume, at least I assumed, that Princess Shuri would be possessed by Emu, and then she would slay her own father, and then that would be it. Emu would take the possessed Shuri and whisk her away to Marie-Joie. But there's 2 other individuals in this room, and something about the king that I want to point out. The first is the shadowy form of an Itsumade. That is Marcus Mars. So yeah, Saturn, big bad guy that messed up Bartholomew Kuma's life. Apparently Marcus Mars is big boss bad guy who messed up Brooke's life. Now, Brooke did get to go live his dream of being a pirate, but what's the point of a dream if your friends have to die for you to get it? Anyways, another one of the 5 elders is making an appearance here in a flashback. I don't remember if Brooke saw the Itsumade while he was, on Egghead. I'll have to reread Egghead and maybe see if that happens. But the third individual that I want to point out here, because the first is the possessed Shuri, then Marcus Mars. But the third is a man in, well, he's kind of shaded off because Oda loves his silhouettes. This guy's smoking a cigar, and he's got a big old coat on. I will admit, the first time I saw him, my immediate thought was Shiryu of the Rain. The Vice Warden of Impel Down before Magellan locked him up. Shiryu is 44 years old, and this event took place, it would have been 70 years ago when Shuri was 7, so 7 years after that. So this would have been 63 years ago. So Shiryu's not born yet. Magellan wasn't born yet. The best team ever in Impel Down was not born yet. So who is this man? Most likely he's just Shiryu's father or something of that nature, but even then, if he's like, oh, he was the Warden of Impel Down before Shiryu was, okay, why is Impel Down so important all of a sudden? Actually, whoa, hang on. So I'm thinking of this just as I'm recording. Usually I have my notes and stuff to think about this. What if the mist is the result of the venom fruit, and this individual is actually Shiryu's father, but he was also the previous user of the venom fruit, and the venom fruit is actually something that is passed down from warden to warden of Impel Down as they pass away. Like, the warden of Impel Down dies, and then the government obviously has the resources to go find the fruit, bring it back to Impel Down, give it to the current warden, and that's why, wow, In that case, Hannibal's doing a great job for not having it, if that turns out to be the case. But that is the 3 individuals in the room that Brooke walks in on. Now, what I want to point out is the dead king. Or possibly dead. Most likely. At first, I thought he just was on the ground, having been slain. But the way Oda drew him, it looks like he has a bat wing. So either the bat wings are an actual family trait that Emu takes advantage of when he possesses Shuri, or Emu possessed both of them and had them duke it out so it looked like Shuri did it when Brooke came bursting through the doors. Either way, she takes a look at Brooke and she says, "Hey Brooke, the war's gonna be over. Isn't that great?" And that's where the chapter ends. I wish I had some kind of fancy theory this time, but it's really more of how does one of the five elders connect to this? Who is this mysterious cigar smoking man who is too old to be Shiryu? And what actually transpired between Shuri and her father? Fortunately, Emu's fire blast of karma, or whatever he called it, omen. When his blast of omen hit Loki's ice, it was as he said. Ratatoskar is the only one who can thaw that ice, which means Shuri is probably safe. At least for now. We don't know how long, but something tells me it's magic ice, so it's probably not that hard to say that she's perfectly preserved, and once she's thawed, she'll be perfectly fine. Regardless, though, let me know in the comments below. Man, I don't even know if I have it. Do you think I'm right about the Venom fruit? I just came up with that now. I would love to know if somebody agrees with me. But other than that, thank you for watching as always, and I will see you in the next video. This is the Hero of Julios, Xing out.